So we had started with the corporate insolvency resolution process, right? And in this corporate insolvency resolution process, we had learned that who can file the application. So it is the financial creditor or the operational creditor or the corporate debtor itself can file the application to the NCLT. And then we had learned that who can file the application, who cannot file the application. So basically these three people can file the application. We had learned the process also. We also read section 11 where we learned that who cannot file the application. Then we read section 12 where we discussed about the process, the timeline for the CIRP process, completion of the CIRP process. Then we studied regulation section 12A, which discussed about the withdrawal of the application, which is admitted under section 7, 9 or 10. So this is basically 7, 9 and 10, correct? Now we did section 13. So as soon as the application is admitted by the NCLT, we say the CIRP has commenced, right? Can anyone tell me what is the time limit for the completion of CIRP?
330 days.
Maximum 330.
1 mark.
180,
Right. So
90.
no, so 180, 90 is good, but what? 180 what?
180,
90 what?
180,
180 what?
180
Don't say
days.
180 days. 180 days what?
Days
Right.
for
So like
completion of
Mansi, correct. Completion of CRP, but from when? So like Mansi, how you have answered in the comment section, 180 plus 90 up to 330 days. So I will reject the first point that you have answered. The second point is a valid point, that one time extension of 90 days. So this is fine. But what 180 days? What 330 days? CIRP should complete within, correct, from 180 days from the date of not filing. Just see the answer that Sridevi ji has answered in the comment section. It is from the date of acceptance because date of filing is under section 7, 9 and 10. Okay, so it must be completed within 180 days. So 180 days is fine, but since it's a CS professional attempt, right? So you need to answer it in a professional way, right? Like a qualified CS, you need to answer that. So 180 days from the date of acceptance or the date of admission of the application by the NCLT. Then you will write plus a 90 days extension, right? A one-time extension, maximum 90 days. One-time extension can be granted, correct? So what is the approval which is needed for this
applicant,
extension?
applicant.
Applicant, आप 12 में कंफ्यूज हो रहे हो, 12 और 12A में.
Okay, sir. Sir, 66% of COC.
Correct. So COC approval, Sridevi ji, but like how Asta ji has answered, right? 66% of the committee of creditor needs to answer, right? Right. They need to give the approval. Only then you will write overall. However, so this is going to be your, let's say, point number A. This is going to be your point number B. And now you are going to write your point number C. So what does point number C state? However,
Maximum
overall.
overall, yes.
Correct. So
Overall
overall or
time
the maximum time. Overall time allowed is
330 days. इसको भी सर from the date of ऐसा लिखना
yes,
पड़ेगा.
yes, yes. Within 330 days from the date of acceptance. एंड ये 330 डेज किसके लिए है?
Any legal proceedings.
Right?
Proceedings.
So time taken for any legal proceeding, right? So date of acceptance, including time granted for any legal proceedings. Mark my words, this is an important question for your एग्जाम, राइट? अब आप देखो, एक जो आंसर आप बोल रहे थे 180, 90, 330 और एक आंसर आप इस तरह से लिख रहे हो, दोनों में डिफरेंस है और आपको मार्क्स में भी डिफरेंस मिलेगा. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so
Yes.
please make sure that you don't write. So if it's a 5-mark question, this should be your answer. If it's a 3-mark question, this should be your answer, because in either case you don't want only 1 mark. And I can show you the certified copies where students have done this mistake and they have got lesser marks. Okay, now if we do the revision of yesterday's lecture, so just see what had happened in section 13.
Declaration of
Moratorium.
Declaration of
moratorium on
moratorium.
public
So basically,
announcement.
as soon as NCLT admits the application, right? So as soon as NCLT admits the application, what happens? Three things. One is the appointment of IRP, right? So one is the appointment of interim resolution professional. Second, declaration of
Declaration of
moratorium.
moratorium.
Then,
Public announcement.
right? So it will ensure that the public announcement is made. So you say it will cause a public announcement. Correct? Now, then we have section number 14. So what is section number 14?
It's a
Regarding
moratorium period.
moratorium.
It's for the moratorium period. So what happens in case of moratorium?
Legal stay in all other proceedings
So there is a
except
legal stay on all other legal proceedings, correct?
yes, except two.
Only on legal proceedings or
Suspension of activity.
okay? No, but what is all written in
Uh,
the,
is institution of suits and
so
Creditor,
that is the legal stay.
yeah.
creditor cannot take any action.
Creditor cannot take any action. Okay. Which creditor and under which law?
SARFAESI.
Yes. So stay on recovery even under SARFAESI Act. Correct? Then
Recovery of any property by an owner or lessor.
okay, recovery of any property. Very good. What else?
And also
Transferring,
transferring,
transferring or disposing of any property
aligning or
Yes.
disposing.
debtor.
So I'll write here stay, right? So there will be a stay on transfer, disposal or creation, encumbrance, charge, etc. on the
So
assets of the company. Yes.
सर हम इस वे में भी लिखेंगे तो चलेगा ना, एकदम वो जैसा उसमें बुक में लिखा है, बुकिश लैंग्वेज लिखना
मुझे बताओ
जरूरी?
मैं क्या बुक लैंग्वेज लिख रहा हूँ?
नो सर।
बिल्कुल जैसे डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। Bookish
ओके।
language is also English language. What we are writing is also English language. So both the language is same. Only the way of presentation is different, and that's absolutely fine. Till the time you convey what is written in the law.
ओके
Okay.
सर।
So students, when they say law ka language, I always say it's not law ka language, it's the English language, and it should convey the same meaning. What see, ये students बोलते हैं law का language है. What we have written here. अब स्टूडेंट्स बोलते हैं तो मैं उनको पूछता हूँ आपका लैंग्वेज कौन सा है, बोलते हैं सर हमारा लैंग्वेज तो सिंपल है 180 93 330। आया आपको समझ में? तो उतना
Yes, sir.
सिंपल अपने को नहीं जाना, आपका
Yes,
लैंग्वेज ऐसा
yes.
नहीं हो सकता। अब ये मैंने कोई बेयर एक्ट से आपको लैंग्वेज उठाकर नहीं दिया, ये वो लैंग्वेज है दैट व्हाट वी हैव रिटन। यस, इन दैट व्हाट आई हैव डन, आई हैव करेक्टेड यू from making certain words like how Mansi used the word filing. No, it's not filing, it's acceptance. So I'll correct that. But otherwise, what law conveys, your answer should also convey the same thing. So till the time it conveys the same thing, there is no problem. You can absolutely write it in this language. The entire reason why I do this revisions thing for IBC and for other chapters also, why I've done these revision things, it's only because that you can write the same points in the exam the same way.
ओके सर।
Okay. like PYQ
ओके
session also
ओके
we
सर,
do the
थैंक यू।
same thing, right? PYQ session में
या
भी हम ऐसे ही लिखते हैं ना, बिल्कुल बुलेट
यस
पॉइंट्स
सर,
में इस
यस।
तरह से वर्ड कि ये कीवर्ड्स आपके आंसर में होने चाहिए, ये कन्वे करना चाहिए। बाकी लिखो आप किसी भी तरीके से, इट इज एब्सोल्युटली फाइन, देयर इज नो
ओके
प्रॉब्लम। और
ओके
कोई
सर।
सीक्वेंस का भी जरूरी नहीं है। मतलब अगर आप बोलो कि सर सेक्शन 13 के अंदर सेक्शन 14 में ये सर क्लॉज ए है, ये सब क्लॉज बी है, ऐसे ए बी सी डी, सर ये ए था, ये बी है, ये सी, तो आपने तो सर उल्टा फुल्टा लिख दिया, दैट इज ऑल्सो फाइन। जो पॉइंट जैसे until unless you are specifically mentioning. So if I write it this way, section 14 subsection 1 clause A, this says about recovery, and suppose it does not talk about recovery, it talks about, let's say, the SARFACI, or let's say it talks about the uh, creating of the assets, right? Or it talks about the suit spending, then it is a wrong thing. Because now you have mentioned that in this particular section in subsection clause. So we are not writing it that way. We have just written it this way, that as per section 14 of Insolvency Bankruptcy Code 2016, with respect to moratorium, the stay is on following things. Simple. There is no need to mention section, subsection, clause or any such thing. आया समझ में?
यस सर, यस।
Okay, now moratorium puts a stay on these things. What else? Moratorium.
No
So moratorium will start from
sir, the supply of essential goods or services not be
From the
terminated
date of order
or
till the
interrupted.
completion of the CRPI process.
right. So this will start. The moratorium period will start from the date of acceptance of application, acceptance or admitted, so I'll write the word admission. And when it is going to end?
Till approval of
Law of resolution
resolution
plan.
plan
Okay, till the approval of the resolution plan. Okay,
or liquidation order.
or the liquidation order. So can I write in my answer that moratorium is for 180 days?
Yes sir.
No, you cannot write. That is the difference. Let's say after 120 days, the committee of creditors decide that the company should be liquidated because we don't see any resolution plan coming, and NCLT orders liquidation. So do you think the moratorium is valid for 180 days?
No sir.
Got it? So you need to
Yes.
understand this part, that the moratorium period will be applicable from which date? From the date on which the public announcement, or basically from the date on which the acceptance is done, basically the insolvency commencement date, the commencement of CIR. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. And it is going to end when the application is admitted, till such order or till the completion of the CIRP. And before, if that any CIRP order, like before any resolution plan is approved, and let's say the court passes a order for liquidation, even then the moratorium will cease to have effect. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Is this clear? Okay. Now in case of moratorium, we will also write for the essential goods, right? So no stay on essential goods, essential services and goods. But there is a condition. Payment
That
must be
the
made during
corporate
the moratorium period, right? Payment must be made during the moratorium period, correct? Or rather for the moratorium period. Then there will be no stay on Vodafone, Idea, government licenses,
Grant.
approvals, grants, etc. There will be no stay on those. Okay. So this is there. We say that section number 14, moratorium is going to be there. Now let's
Sir,
discuss.
one thing
Yes.
more, it will
Pardon?
not affect any case or suit pending before Supreme
Correct.
Court.
So yes, you mentioned this here also. I wanted to write here, but I just missed it. Okay. So except cases before High Court or Supreme Court, the writ jurisdiction. Okay. Perfect. Now we have section number 15. So what is there for section number 15?
It's
Public
about public
announcement.
announcement.
So it's about public announcement. So what is there in public announcement? First of all, who makes this public announcement?
Public announcement makes
Pu-
IRP.
Very good. IRP. When when is the public announcement made?
Pub- Immediately.
Immediately upon his appointment. Is immediately defined?
Yes, 3 days.
So maximum 3 days. All right. Then what else you can write about public announcement?
It
Public
must contain the following details.
Okay, it must contain the following details. So what all details? But before
Made
details, let's discuss uh, where, where is the public announcement made?
in English newspaper and regional language
Varna,
newspaper.
their register.
So one English plus one vernacular language. Very, very good. Correct, Mansi. So you have answered in the comment section. One English, one vernacular language, plus it will also be on the website, but not of ROC, website of IBBI. Okay. And also
Website of corporate debtor, if
correct.
any.
Yes, and also on the website of corporate debtor. So just one question I'm asking, not from CRI. Is it mandatory for a company to have a website? Is it mandatory for a company to have website? Yes. Okay. Which law, which provision? Which law, which provision makes it mandatory? All the companies need to have a website.
Companies that I think listed companies compulsory.
So where it is written?
याद नहीं आ रहा है सर, लेकिन पढ़ा है कहीं कंपनी लॉ में, वो ड्यू डिलीजेंस में पढ़ा है.
ड्यू डिलिजेंस में सबसे ज्यादा कौन से टॉपिक से पढ़ते हो? Is it in LODR?
Yes sir.
Right? Okay. Remember this question. Okay. Why public announcement is made? Why is public announcement made?
For last date for claim and submission.
Okay. Last date for claim. Or you would say, better would be, you'll say this is for inviting the claims by the creditors of corporate debtor. Okay.
Okay sir.
And now you will mention about the content. Now just see if this question is being asked for 5 marks, or this is being asked for 3 marks, or let's say for 4 marks. Whatever marks they question they ask. Let's say they ask for 6 marks. Do you have enough content to write for it?
Yes sir.
आप देखिए बिल्कुल FAQ जैसा बन गया. So content में आप क्या दोगे? Content में you will mention the name of the corporate debtor plus the resolution, interim resolution professional, correct? Plus where the corporate debtor is registered, where the corporate debtor is registered. What else? Here you will mention, Astaji, the last date for submission of claims, the last date for the submission of claims. Then
And penalty for false and misleading claims.
yes, so the penalties for false and misleading claims.
And date on which a CIP shall close.
So tentative date, tentative date of completion. Yes or no? Tentative date of completion,
Yes sir.
right? What else? So broadly, application will contain these points, right? Now, what was section 16? It was all for the interim resolution professional. IR.
Appointment and tenure.
Correct. So all for IRP. So how the IRP will be appointed? So if it is proposed by the applicant, then accordingly, correct? If it is proposed by the applicant, then as per the name which is proposed.
In
If let's
case
say not proposed, And not
Then
proposed by which creditor?
operational creditor.
So only operational creditor. Then what is to be done?
Educating authority will intimate to the IBVI. Then within 10 days, IBVI will appoint.
So adjudicating authority will intimate IBBI, and IBBI within 10 days will propose a resolution professional to act as interim resolution professional, rather insolvency professional to act as resolution professional. Okay,
Yes, sir.
done. Oh, all right. So what is the tenure of IRP? What is the tenure of IRP? From the date of appointment?
30 days from the date of appointment.
30 days. That was or that is still now? From the
That
date
was
of his appointment. Till the first meeting.
until no sir until RP is not appointed.
Till the appointment of RP.
ओ सर आपने वहां पे कट किया है तो मुझे लगा अंडरलाइन ऊपर नीचे हो गया है.
वो मेरे उस बुक में कहीं पर भी कोई ड्राफ्टिंग एरर नहीं है. लेट मी टेल यू दैट मटेरियल I had made in 2018. After that, that material has been updated and I'm using the same material since 2018. Every year, 4 batches, right? 2 times in college. So 6 times that document is being reviewed in a year. 6 times in class and 6 times before lecture, it is reviewed by me. So 12 times in last 3 years. Okay. So that is minimum that I have done plus the number of students that have gone through that. So don't worry, there is no error in that. Okay. तो जहां पर भी मैंने लिख के किसी चीज को कट किया है, this means what? That's an amendment.
Amend.
Yes, so it was before and now the provision is changed. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this was your section number 16. Then we have section number 17, which was for the management of the affairs of the corporate debtor, which will be done by the interim resolution professionals. Then section 18 is the duty. Section 19 casts an obligation on the personals of the company to extend their cooperation. And then section 20 that the management should be continued as per the going concern. The management of the corporate debtor should be done as the company remains a going concern. Now section 21. So section 21 deals with
Committee
Committee
of
of creditors.
creditors.
the committee of creditors, which is COC. Okay, so what is there in committee of creditors?
IRP will form a committee of all the creditors.
So who forms? Very, very good. It is
IRP.
IRP. Very, very good. Then who all are the members of COC?
Only financial creditor.
So you'll say all financial
All
creditor
financial.
of the corporate debtor. Is there an exception to this?
Yes, if no financial creditor.
Except the related party of
Oh,
corporate debtor.
हाँ वो डेब्ट इक्विटी वाला.
Right.
Sir, one point was also there, na, कि this proviso will not be applicable to financial creditor regulator.
Yes, financial sector regulator. Of course. Of course, it is there. So members of the, so who are going to be the members? All the financial creditors except the related party. And then we have the second part. What does it say? Where all the financial creditors are related party. Or there is no financial creditor, then eighteen largest
Operational
operational
credit.
creditor. So why I keep getting spelling mistakes here? So 18 largest operational creditor, then
One represented appointed by workman
so one representative of the workman.
and one of the employee.
Very good. One from the employees. One representative of the employees. Perfect. Anything else for committee of creditors? Voting. Voting share.
In proportion of their debt, they are voting, right?
Correct. So in proportion of their financial debt. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in proportion of their financial debt. So let's say if a person is both operational and financial creditor, then in that case, the voting right will be given only for the financial debt, right? What else? What else in the committee of creditor? The committee of creditor is going to pass the resolution by what share?
66.
51.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the
resolution plan.
resolution
Yes, 51.
passed by COC would require 51%
Voting rights.
assent, basically, right? In favor, assent, or 51% in favor. This is if nothing specific is mentioned, right? But if let's say anything specific is mentioned, then as per the provision, correct? And what is as per the provision? Let's say, for example, under section 12A, what is needed? 90%. What was 12A for? Under section 12, 66%. What was this for? What is this for?
12A for withdrawal
Correct.
of
So 12A is for the withdrawal of application.
application.
And then 66% under section 12 is for extension of the CIRP period. Okay,
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
right? All right. What else? What else? Now we have the first meeting of the committee of creditors, correct? So just see this, the timeline. The timeline would be like this. So you have the commencement of CIRP, right? From here, within 30 days, you will have the formation of the COC. Okay. Once the COC is formed, within next 7 days, you will have the first meeting of COC. And in that first meeting of COC, via 66% voting, RP will be appointed. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So same way you can write here under section 22. Again, you need 66% voting. This is for the appointment of RP. Right? Just make a list like this, that in what section, what percentage is required. Otherwise, it's 51%. Correct? So this is your section number 22. So where we say that appointment of RP. So section 22 is for the appointment of RP. So appointment of RP, this will be done. Same what we have written there, 66% voting of the COC. Also, who will be this RP?
It will
Either
be
the interim resolution professional will continue
So it is
or
going to be,
replace.
so either the IRP will be appointed or some other professional, rather some other insolvency professional. So if IRP is to be appointed, what is needed?
Written consent.
Correct. So obtain written consent. Written consent to be obtained. Correct. And if some other IP is to be appointed as RP, then
Application is to be filed with A.
correct. So basically the application to the adjudicating authority, which is NCLT, then what NCLT is going to do? What NCLT is going to do?
NCLT forwarded the name
Forward the
So NCLT is going to
of resolution professional.
forward the name to IBBI. Correct. And then what IBBI will do? What IBBI will do?
Within 10
IBBI will
days.
either approve or reject.
So IBBI will then confirm the
10
name
days.
of IP
Within 10
to
days.
be appointed as RP. Okay.
Yes.
Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else? What else? Till that time, the new RP is not appointed. IRP will continue. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So till new RP is not appointed, IRP to continue. Okay. Fantastic. So this is done. So this was all we had done till section number 23. Yes or no? Section
Yes, sir.
23 says that the resolution professional is going to conduct the insolvency resolution process. Now, let's go to the Bare Act and read the sections, and then we will again come back here. So just see, meeting of the committee of creditors. So when will the meeting of committee of creditor take place? So meeting of the committee of creditor will be take place when it is conducted. It will be conducted by the resolution professional. Then the members of the committee of creditors, they can meet in person, or this meeting can also take place electronically. Okay. Then the notice will be given to the each member of the committee of creditors, right? Including to the members of the committee of creditors, also to their authorized representatives. Then the notice will also be sent to the members of the suspended board of directors or the partners of the corporate person, right? Then it will also be sent to the operational creditor and their representative, only if so operational creditors only if their aggregate dues is not less than 10% of the debt. So if you have 10% or more, you will have to send it to the operational creditors also. Then the directors, partners and representative of the operational creditor, as referred to in subsection 3, they may attend. Okay, so these two may attend. These two may attend the meeting but shall have no voting rights. Correct? Then in the presence of any such director or representative of the operational creditor, just remember that it shall not invalidate the proceedings of the meeting. So if let's say they do not attend, later on they cannot come and say that the meeting whatever has happened is void because it did not happen in my presence, right? So this will be there. Thereafter, subject to subsection 6, 6A, 6B of section 21. Now I hope this is clear to you all. So we are talking about those representatives and the financial creditors who are holding the securities. So the trustees, who is the member of the committee of creditor, may appoint an insolvency professional other than the RP to represent such creditor in the meeting. So this also we have seen. Then provided the fees will be borne by the insolvency professional of that insolvency professional by the individual creditor only. So this is fine. Now each creditor shall vote according to the weight assigned to him based on the financial debt. So this we have already written there. And the resolution professional shall determine by the voting share assigned to each creditor by the board, and the meeting shall be conducted in such manner as may be specified. So when is the meeting going to happen? The meeting will happen at any point of time whenever the whenever the resolution professional deems necessary, feels necessary, then the meeting is going to happen, or the meeting can take place when a request is made by the member of the committee of creditor holding 33% of the voting rights. Thereafter, the notice of the meeting will be again sent to all the members, which can be sent either through hand delivery or through post or through any other electronic means, right? And then the quorum of the meeting will be at least 33%. So where is all this written? So all this is written in the rules. You will not find it all this here. Okay. All this you are not going to find it here. So all this you are going to find it in the rules. So I'll write it here. Plus you can also refer the ebook and slides. So whatever is there in the regulation. So just see this. This is section 22. So committee of creditors, again, I have written it in a very precise and a detailed manner here. So just see this. From here it is important. So as you say, the normal plain English language, right? Not in the law language. So just see, a resolution professional may convene such meeting as and when it feels necessary, okay? And shall also convene the meeting if a request is made by the members representing 33% of the voting rights. So at least 7 days notice must be served. Okay. This 7 days time period can also be reduced, and it can be reduced for not less than 24 hours. Then notice must inform the participants about the venue, time and date of the meeting. What will be the quorum of the meeting? The quorum of the meeting will be 33% of the voting rights, either present in person or through by video conferencing or by through audio visual means, right? And then the resolution professional will act as the chairperson. He must ensure that the minutes of the meeting is circulated to all the members of the committee by electronic means within 48 hours of the said meeting. Okay. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then see what are the duties of the resolution professional. So again, the duties of the IRP and the duties of the resolution professional is almost same. It's almost same. So you have, it shall be the duty of the resolution professional to preserve and protect the assets. It's all general. So you don't not, I don't think so this is going to be asked in the exam. Then for the purpose of subsection 1, he can take, basically the resolution professional can take the following things. Okay, will take the immediate custody and control of the assets, represent or act behalf of the corporate debtor with the third party, right? In case of any judicial proceedings and all which is there. Then also raise interim finance. Then appoint accountants, legal practitioners, correct? Also maintain an updated list of the claims. Convene the meeting of the committee of creditors. Now this is important. The the resolution professional is also going to prepare the information memorandum. This is important. It's going to prepare the information memorandum. Now, what is information memorandum? So basically, as I say, it's a kind of invitation which you give to the prospective resolution applicants that this is the company. Okay, this is the company, and this corporate debtor is undergoing CIRP. These are the claims. This is the business condition. These are the assets. Anyone who is interested can submit their claim. So how they will submit their claim? They need to have all the details about the company, right? So that's what is there in invitation for this invitation. So this is preparation of the information memorandum. Now, once this information memorandum is prepared, this will be circulated or this will be passed in the committee of creditors, right? And the committee of creditors will approve. Guys, this is clear. The information memorandum will be submitted to the committee of creditors. What does information memorandum do? Information memorandum, as the name suggests, it's the information memorandum. So it's a document which contains all the information about the corporate debtor under which is undergoing a CIRP process. And why this information memorandum is prepared? So that the resolution applicants can invite the resolution professional can invite the application from the resolution applicant. So all those resolution applicants who are interested in the corporate debtor can submit their resolution plan. But how they are going to draft the resolution plan, that is on the basis of information memorandum. Guys, is this clear? Guys,
Okay.
is this clear? Now there
Yes.
is a amend there was an amendment, this clause was inserted. So this means what? So the impact of this is that it is now mandatory for the resolution professional to invite the prospective resolution applicant who fulfill the criteria. So any such resolution applicant who fulfills the criteria, it is the resolution professional's duty. So what he does, he basically make sure that the information memorandum is circulated to the person who are actually interested in coming up with a resolution plan. Also, the resolution professional will have to ensure that the resolution applicant is not disqualified. So yes, we have a section 29A, a very important section, an important amendment in IBC that was again made pursuant to a lot of cases that there are certain person who cannot submit the resolution plan. So let's say a CIRP is going against, let's presume, uh, you can say Vijay Mallya. So Vijay Mallya cannot submit the resolution plan. Okay. Now Vijay Mallya cannot submit the resolution plan, not just for Kingfisher, he cannot submit resolution plan for any other company. So let's say Jet Airways is sinking right now and they are planning that no, we will make Jet Airways, we will revive Jet Airways. So first, basically, IBC casts an obligation that Mr. Mallya, first make your sinking fisher back to Kingfisher and then come and rescue Jet Airways. So basically, you if you're a NPA, you're not. So I hope you are understanding, right? So there are certain person who have been disqualified that you cannot submit the resolution plan. So all those people, if they plan to submit the resolution plan, they will not be allowed to submit the resolution plan. So this is there. So now it is again mandatory for the resolution RP. RP is not resolution plan. It is resolution professional. So it is mandatory for the resolution professional to invite from the prospective resolution applicant whosoever fits the criteria. Now, how the criteria will be determined? The criteria will be determined by the, in addition to section 29A, the criteria will be determined by the committee of creditor only. So let's say I do not fall into the category of section 29A, which means I am qualified to submit a resolution plan. But I cannot submit a bid for revival of Jet Airways because my net worth is not such that I can go and revive Jet Airways. So in that case, the committee of creditor can come up with the additional criteria that the person who is submitting the resolution plan must fulfill these criterias. If the person fulfills these criteria, only then that person can submit the resolution plan. It's basically the criteria, right? So just understand the difference between the two. One is the criteria and another is the eligibility. Eligibility is set by section 29A, whether you are eligible or you are not eligible to submit a resolution plan. And that is not to a company specific, that is in general. But when we discuss about whether you are qualified to do or not, so that will be decided by the committee of creditors along with the RP, okay, or you can say RP along with the committee of creditors, which will again differ from company to company. So if I'm disqualified by section 29A for company A, which means I'm disqualified for all the other companies. If I am disqualified, or if I'm, let's say, not eligible for company A because I don't fit into the criteria, it's not necessary that I'll not be for company B. I can be there for company B also. I hope you all understood this point. Guys, clear?
Yes, yes,
So this criteria will also be mentioned in the information memorandum. Guys, clear? Along with information memorandum, there is another document, just their invitation for the expression of interest. So in that case, they are going to mention who all can submit their resolution plan. So now it is mandatory for the resolution professional to do that. And then resolution professional should be present in all the meetings, present all the resolution plan. Whatever plans he receives, he will submit all the resolution plans provided the person who has submitted the resolution plan is eligible. Then file the application for the avoidance of transaction. So avoidance of transaction we will do tomorrow, because this is a streak of section which we will cover tomorrow. Okay, there are certain transactions which the resolution professional or the interim resolution professional, or let's say the liquidator, needs to identify that these transactions are fraudulent transactions. These are the tainted transactions which ideally should not have been entered. But now since they have been entered, so these transactions will be avoided. For this, the resolution professional or the liquidator would go to NCLT and file an application that these are the transactions. On my investigation, I found these transactions are not correct. These are not executed in good faith. Hence, these transactions should be made void. So now I hope you understand the avoidance transaction. Don't worry about what are avoidance transaction, because we will be doing that in detail once we do the liquidation proceedings, because there we have 4 or 5 sections which cover all these avoidance of transaction, and then any other actions which may be specified by the board. So apart from all the duties of the resolution professional, I'll tell you these two are very, very important. One is for the preparation of the information memorandum, and then inviting the prospective resolution applicant who fulfills the criteria for submitting their resolution plan. Guys, this is clear?
yes,
Okay. Now, section 25E is again a basic question. You can read it yourself, not very, very relevant. Then application for avoidance of transaction not to affect the proceeding. So if any application has been filed by the resolution professional for the avoidance of transaction, if he has found certain transactions which are avoidance transactions which were entered by the corporate debtor before the CIRP started. So take for example, let's say a CIRP is going against my company. Asthaji is one of the creditor and also a related party. So what I did before the commencement of the CIRP, I gave her some assets of the company at a very lower price. Okay, I sold assets at a very lower price to Asthaji, or let's say she was a creditor and she was an unsecured creditor. So before making any payment to secured creditors, or basically, out of the normal course of business, I went and I repaid the loan of Asthaji, because I was aware that my company is going to get into the CIRP process. So let's make the payment to Asthaji before. So all these are avoidance transactions. So if let's say I've sold a property worth 1000 crore at 400 crore to Astaji, so once the resolution professional gets to know about such transaction, the resolution professional or the liquidator will file the application to NCLT, and the property will be recovered back from Astaji, right? And if let's say Astaji does not have the property, let's presume she has sold to Mansi. Now here again NCLT will say that, okay, Astaji either return us the property or return us the value. So now she'll have to deposit 1000 crore to the company, that is with the liquidator or with the resolution professional. So this is how it goes, right? So basically, if any such transaction has been entered and that application has been filed by the resolution professional, so that is not going to impact the CIRP process. So you cannot say that the CIRP process should be stayed, or now that let's say the CIRP process should be ended, nothing like that. That is going to continue as it is. Now you have section 27. Section 27 is for the replacement of the resolution professional by the committee of creditors. So where, you know, the resolution professionals believe that, so we have seen that the appointment of the resolution professional is again done by the committee of creditors. And what is the percentage of voting? What is the percentage of voting? 66, correct. So by 66% voting, the resolution professional is appointed. Now, even if you have to replace the resolution professional, the process is exactly going to be same. Committee of creditor is going to pass basically they're going to pass a resolution in their meeting with 66% voting, and they would propose that the resolution professional should be replaced. Thereafter, the resolution professional, right? Thereafter, basically, the committee of creditors will file the application to NCLT proposing the name of some other insolvency professional to whom they want to make as RP, right? And then NCLT will again go to the IBBI. Within 10 days, IBBI will reply, and then the new RP will be appointed, and the old RP will then take a exit. Okay, so just by passing the resolution, RP will not take the exit. RP will take exit only when the new RP is appointed. So one thing, if you see a common amendment which was made in 2018, is that the company is not going to remain without the insolvency professional once the CIRP has commenced. Can you understand this? Once the CIRP has commenced, the company is not going to remain idle. The company is going to be with IRP. So once IRP is replaced, so let RP come, only then IRP will replace. Let's say the RP you want to replace, you want to change the RP. So let the new RP come, only then the RP, the old RP is going to leave. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? कभी भी CIRP प्रोसेस में कंपनी खाली नहीं रहेगा, एक इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोफेशनल रहेगा ही रहेगा. ये क्या हो रहा था? अदरवाइज यू नो often the cases were found, let's say 30 days earlier, the appointment, basically the tenure of interim resolution professional was only for 30 days. So once the 30 days time period gets over, after that the IRP would say that my job is done, I am not going to remain in the company. Now the committee of creditors have decided that the IRP should be replaced with a new RP. Now we don't have a new RP, okay? And let's say the appointment of new RP took another 20 days. Now let's say the 180 days has time period got elapsed. Now come NCLT says that we are going to make a liquidation order. Then some creditor will make a claim that just see that, you know, IRP had left the company after 30 days, right? And then we took 20 days to find a new RP. So we should be given extra 20 days time period, right? So now do you understand what sort of situations must have arisen? Because of which law has been amended, and they have made it very clear that whosoever insolvency professional is appointed will remain till the time the new person does not step in. Okay.
वो टाइम बाउंड मैनर का फिर कोई मतलब नहीं रह जाता इससे.
हाँ, अभी वो शिफ्ट चेंज करने में गलती हो गई, गड़बड़ हो गया, टाइम वेस्ट हो गया, वो नहीं चलेगा. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड?
और पहले भी वो लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स को लेके चलता था ना, लीगल प्रोसीडिंग चल
वो
रही
तो
है,
अलग ही
हमको.
केस है, दैट उसके लिए
हाँ हाँ
330 डेज को लेकर आ गए. बट अभी
हाँ
जो मैं
हाँ.
पॉइंट आपको बता रहा हूँ उसमें क्या है कि 30 डेज के बाद IRP बोलता है अभी मेरा काम नहीं है, मेरा काम खत्म, आप लोगों ने तो मेरे को अपॉइंट किया नहीं है, आप लोगों ने प्रपोज किया दैट आई शुड बी रिप्लेस्ड, सो नाउ माय वर्क इज डन. तो वो निकल गया. अभी सपोज नया RP अपॉइंट करने में और 20 दिन लग गए और 35 डेज लग गए. नॉट नेसेसरी. आपने जिसका नाम प्रपोज किया, NCLT बोलता है ये डिस्क्वालिफाइड है, फिर आप नया नाम बोलते हो, NCLT बोलता है डिस्क्वालिफाइड है, या एक जनरल कंसेंट बनने में टाइम लग गया. 66% वोटिंग चाहिए ना. सो
हाँ हाँ.
कुछ क्रेडिटर्स बोलते हैं कि इनको अपॉइंट करना है, कुछ बोलते हैं उनको अपॉइंट करना है, तो ये काफी ज्यादा आपके लिए डिफिकल्टी हो जाता है। तो आपको ये ध्यान रखना है कि it's not that the consensus is not being made, right? Since the consensus is not being made, उसकी वजह से जो डिले हो गया, अब आपका जो 180 डेज का टाइम पीरियड है वो तो ऑन ही है ना, आप समझ रहे हो? दैट 180 डेज टाइम पीरियड इज ऑन, उसी में ये 30-35 डेज आपका वेस्ट हो गया। अब आप ये पिटिशन नहीं डाल सकते बाद में एनसीएलटी के पास कि देखो इट इज नॉट फेयर, 30-35 days the company was without RP, so of course no work was done during those time, so please give us the extension of 180, beyond 180 days give us the extension, then again give us the extension of 90 days which is my right under section 12। आ रहा है आपको समझ में? तो ये सारे केसेस बहुत सब हुए थे, इसी के लिए लॉ में क्लियरली बोल दिया दैट ओके, इवन इफ द IRP is you want to replace or you want to replace the RP, the company will not remain without the insolvency professional. One person will always be there in the company. Even if you want to replace him, let the other person step in. Only then we will allow this, the ex resolution professional or the ex interim resolution professional to step out. Got it? So this is for the replacement. So where at any time during the CIRP process, the committee of creditor is of the opinion that the resolution professional, by the way, I'm reading it from the ebook, but we can again read it from here also. So this is the duties. So in duties, I have said you, these two are of extreme importance, right? Preparation of the information memorandum and this. All right. Then just see this. So where at any time during the CIRP process, the committee or the creditors is of the opinion that the resolution professional appointed under section 22 is required to be replaced, it may replace him with another resolution professional in the manner as provided in this section. Now, the committee of creditor will require the voting of 66%. By a vote of 66% of the voting share, they can resolve to replace the resolution professional with another resolution professional. And just see, this is also a common point. Obtain a written consent. Obtain a written consent from the proposed resolution professional. Then the committee of creditor is going to propose the name of the insolvency professional to the adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority will forward the name of the proposed resolution professional to IBBI for the confirmation. And again, the resolution professional will be appointed in the same manner as laid down in section 16. So in section 16, we just revised it today. We read it yesterday. And today, again, we revised that 10 days time period has been given. And if let's say the 10 days time period has elapsed and no name has been proposed, then at least the person is going to continue there. So this is there. And where any disciplinary proceeding is pending, then again, the resolution professional who is appointed under section 22 will continue until the appointment of another resolution professional under this section. Guys, this is clear. Section 27, is this clear? Is section 27 clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we have section 28. Section 28, again, I feel can be an important section. Straightforward. There are certain decisions which the committee of creditors, basically the resolution professional cannot take itself. The resolution professional will have to take the prior approval of the committee of creditor. Only then it will be allowed. So if let's say there are decisions which are mentioned in section 28, these are taken by the resolution professional without the prior consent of the COC, those all actions will be regarded as void. So just see, one is what is to raise the interim finance in excess of the amount which is decided by the committee of creditor. So committee of creditor gave a limit of 10 lakh rupees. The resolution professional has raised 13 lakhs. So the 3 lakh would be void. 10 lakh is fine, but 3 lakh would be void until unless the resolution professional again takes a prior approval for these 3 days. Then creating any security interest over the assets of the corporate debtor. So security interest means all those charge, encumbrance, pledge, all those things. Then change the capital structure of the corporate debtor. Record any change of the ownership in the interest in the ownership interest of the corporate debtor. Give instructions to the financial creditor who are maintaining the accounts for any debit. So if any application is made for the debit, then again it will not be allowed, right? So this will not be allowed. Thereafter, if you see, undertake any related party transactions, right? So the RP cannot take any related party. So basically these are the checks and the balances. Okay. Then again, if you see amend any constitutional document. So let's say the memorandum of association, the articles of association, or let's say the LLP agreement, which is being there. So you cannot make any changes in that. Delegate authority to any other person, disposal of the shares, right? Make any changes in the management of the corporate debtor or even its in its subsidiary, transfer the rights or the financial debts or the operational debts, right, under the material contract, otherwise than in the ordinary course of business. Then also appoint, make changes in the appointment of the terms of the personnel as specified by the committee of creditors. Then make changes in the appointments or in the terms of the contract of the statutory auditor or the internal auditor. So all these things. The resolution professional will have to take a prior approval. If any prior approval is not taken, then all such actions will be declared as void and the approval will be again needed for 66%. So apart from, you see here, if we go back to the slide, we have got, so here it is under section 27, we again need 66% voting. And then under section 28, you again need 66% voting, right? So under section 27, it is for the replacement of RP. It is for the replacement of RP. And under section 28, it is for the prior approval. Prior approval to RP for
certain.
certain transactions. Okay. Now you will get only one, that is for the approval of the resolution plan. Okay. I'm sorry, I closed the screen share. Okay, check this. Then this is section 29 where I said that preparation of the information memorandum. So we'll discuss about information memorandum in detail now. So as I said, the resolution professional will prepare the information memorandum and it will contain such relevant information as may be specified by the board for the formation of the resolution plan. So what all things you think should be there in the information memorandum? What all should be there in the information memorandum according to you?
All about information, corporate data,
Okay. Like,
like mm, uh, financial statements or books of accounts की जो भी हो,
okay.
और उसके क्रेडिटर्स के बारे में होना चाहिए.
So ये है. This is there. So I would say read it from ebook page 44. Okay. So here I would say refer the ebook page 44. So just see, the resolution professional will prepare the information memorandum and it should contain all the information specified in regulation 36. Now you don't have to remember regulation 36, but this is fine. Then subject to subsection 4, the resolution professional shall submit the information memorandum in the electronic form to each member of the committee of creditors within 2 weeks of his appointment and to each prospective resolution applicant at least by the date of the invitation of the resolution plan. Can anyone tell me which will be the date? Which will be the date? If they are saying within 2 weeks, so आपका commencement हुआ CIRP का, वहां से लेके अभी तक कितना टाइम निकल गया होगा? So just see, 30 days the first meeting of committee of creditors take place, yes or no, from the commencement of CIRP.
यस सर, फिर 7 days में वो COC की मीटिंग होनी
नहीं
चाहिए.
वो, हाँ ये इसी के साथ में. So here प्लस आपके पास 2 वीक्स का टाइम है, सॉरी, सो 30, so this is your 30 days, plus you have been given 7 days, so technically you see this is 37 days, right? And then you have been given 2 weeks. 2 weeks means 14 days, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So this becomes what? This becomes 51, okay?
Yeah.
But in the law, what they have given, in the regulation they have given not later than 54th day, okay? Not later than 54th day. And why 54 and why here 51? Now if you see the 3 days time period, public announcement, remember?
Yes, sir.
So that's the reason we have not later than 54 days. Okay. Guys, clear?
यस वो आईआरपी के अपॉइंटमेंट के 3 डेज के बाद ही वो मतलब
पब्लिक अनाउंसमेंट तो
पब्लिक
3 दिन के
आता
अंदर
है।
अंदर जाता है
हाँ
ना,
हाँ हाँ
तो क्योंकि
यस
वहां पे 3 दिन का टाइम दिया, सो ये अलाइंड वैसे हो गया है. सो just remember this. I'll also put all these things in a slide uh, in a simplified way so that you can remember, right? Then the information memorandum should contain. So this is, we are talking about the content of the information memorandum. So if we discuss about the content of the information memorandum, one is it should contain the description of the assets and liabilities of the corporate debtor in such manner so that their values can be assigned, values can be ascertained. Then the latest financial statements, right? Also the audited financial statements of the last 2 financial years, correct? Then the list of creditors containing the name of the creditors, their amount which has been claimed, right? And the amount of claim which has been admitted, what security interest has been created. Then also particulars of the debts which are due from or to the corporate debtor. So corporate debtor को किससे किससे पैसा लेना है, at least from their related parties. Then the details of the guarantees that have been given in relation to the debts of the corporate debtor and who are the guarantors, right? Then also the name and address of the members or the partners holding at least 1% stake in the corporate debtor, right? Then if there is any material litigation, so that will be again forwarded. Then also the number of workers and the number of employees and the liabilities of the corporate debtor towards them. Got it? Right? And then any other information which is needed. So all these informations will be provided in the information memorandum. Guys, clear?
यस सर
Guys, clear? This one, right? And then a member of a committee may request the resolution professional to write further more information, right? They can also put, if it is approved, then the resolution professional should include all the other points as well. And then the resolution professional shall share the information memorandum after receiving an undertaking from the member of the committee of creditor or from the prospective resolution applicant with respect to the maintaining the confidentiality. So why this has been discussed? What is this? Just read
सर
this part.
सर वो कंपनी के जो कॉन्फिडेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन होंगे और वो उसके साथ शेयर करेंगे तो फिर इसके लिए
सो आप ये देखो, जब आप इंफॉर्मेशन मेमोरेंडम दे रहे हो, ठीक है, और आप कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन उनसे प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो रेजोल्यूशन एप्लीकेंट को या लेट्स से मेंबर ऑफ कमिटी ऑफ क्रेडिटर को, पता चले वो ये सारा इंफॉर्मेशन ले जाके आपके कॉम्पिटिटर को दे दे,
यस यस सर
तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगा ना.
यस सर
सो देयर विल बी अ नॉन डिस्क्लोजर अग्रीमेंट साइंड. ओके,
जैसे वो ड्यू डिलिजेंस करते हैं तो उसमें भी कॉन्फिडेंट
करेक्ट,
वो अंडरटेकिंग
करेक्ट,
देते हैं ना उसमें भी
करेक्ट. So non-disclosure. So let's say I am from Indigo Airlines. I have no interest in Jet Airways. I want Jet Airways to get shut. ऐसा कोई allegation नहीं लगा रहा हूँ. Just I'm saying that I want the company to get shut. But at the same time, I want to know who are the suppliers, what are the arrangements of the Jet Airways, right? So I go as a resolution applicant for Jet Airways, take all the information, and then I say, not interested, right? So how do we have those ads? Like you go for the ice cream tasting at Baskin Robin, right? You taste 10 different types of ice cream, and then you say, no, I'm not liking any of the ice cream here. And then you move out smartly after having all 10 spoon of ice cream, and then you say, no, I'm not interested in having ice cream, or you didn't like the taste. Same thing is happening here. So all those activities do not take place. That's the reason this NDA will be signed. Okay. Is this clear?
यस
Guys, is this clear?
सर। और जैसे कि कोई इनवाइटी है और उसको और मतलब फर्दर कोई इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए तो वो भी प्रोवाइड कराते हैं कि बस इसी जो इंफॉर्मेशन मेमोरेंडम रहता है बस वहीं तक ही उसका वो रहता है।
नहीं, और भी अगर कोई इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए तो डेफिनेटली the other information will also be provided,
ओके सर।
right? The other information will also be provided here. Okay. Okay. So I'll put it in the slide also. So this is with respect to the information memorandum. So information memorandum, this will be prepared by,
बाय आरपी।
so this is going to be prepared by the resolution professional. Okay. Then the information memorandum will be submitted to,
सीओसी।
this will be submitted to the committee of creditors, correct? Committee of creditors within 2 weeks of his appointment. Within 2 weeks of the appointment. Okay. Then, but not later than,
54 days।
but not later than 54th day from the commencement of CIRP.
2 वीक्स सर सीओसी के कमेंसमेंट मतलब सीओसी के फॉर्म
Of
होने के
his
बाद है।
appointment. नहीं, RP के appointment से.
अच्छा ओके सर।
Okay. Then the information memorandum. What should be the content? What should be the content? So they'll have
एसेट्स
to
एंड
provide.
लायबिलिटीज,
So the assets and liabilities of corporate debtor,
फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स,
the assets and liabilities of the corporate debtor, then the latest financial statement, then
ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट
of last
ऑफ
2 years.
लास्ट 2 years,
So audited financial statement of last 2 years
लिस्ट ऑफ क्रेडिटर्स।
and their claims, correct?
यस।
So the list of creditors and their claims. Thereafter, amount which is due to or from the related parties. Yes or no? Related parties से कितना पैसा मिलना है,
यस।
right? And thereafter, I'll write it here only. So any material litigations, all the material litigations which are there, so it will be mentioned. Thereafter, number of employees and workmen, along with the dues, right? And one more thing, the details of the guarantee. Correct. So all this will be mentioned in the information memorandum. Also, there is something called as invitation of expression of interest. So if you get a question on this, so I'll write it here. Invitation of the expression of interest. So what we'll get here? So basically the resolution professional will publish the invitation for the expression of interest, and this will be published in 2 newspapers, English vernacular language, and also on the website of the corporate debtor and IBBI. Now why it is there? It is basically so that the resolution applicants can submit their claims. Okay, not claims, the resolution applicant can submit that yes, we are interested, and then the resolution professional will do the due diligence of all these applicants, and he will prepare a list of eligible prospective applicants, and thereafter the resolution applicants are going to submit their claims to the COC or submit their resolution plans. Guys, got it? इसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट का? सो दैट all the person who are interested to submit their resolution plan can provide their name to the resolution professional. Okay, so this should be published in the English as well as in the vernacular language newspaper, plus it will also be published on the website of IBBI and of the website of the corporate debtor. What is the objective? To invite the prospective. Remember हमने section 24 में पढ़ा था, invite prospective resolution applicants.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is the same. So invite the prospective resolution applicants.
Sir, it is not mandatory इंग्लिश और वर्नाकुलर लैंग्वेज जिसमें पब्लिक अनाउंसमेंट गया था, ऐसा कोई जरूरी तो नहीं है ना वो उसी में ही पब्लिश हो?
नहीं नहीं वैसा नहीं है, but usually it is in the same newspaper.
Okay, sir.
Right. So this will be done, and then the resolution applicants list will be prepared as per the response of EOI. Correct? And then what RP is going to do? RP will then do the due diligence.
वो फिर यहीं पे क्राइटेरिया वगैरह देखेगा ना सर?
Correct.
आरपी
Correct. Due diligence of the applicants. Okay. And then RP will prepare the provisional list of eligible prospective applicants. ये पॉइंट समझा?
यस सर.
ये पॉइंट क्लियर हुआ? सो एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट के ऊपर अगर आए तो एक शॉर्ट नोट 3 मार्क्स का मिल सकता है, और इट कैन बी फॉर 7 marks. 7, I'm telling you, it can be for 5 marks also. Is this clear? Is this clear? Okay, let's go ahead. So then we have section 29A. Now just see, this I have discussed with you all. This is there. Now we have section 29A. Now section 29A, if you are from the new syllabus, you will study the case of Swiss ribbon. So this was constitutionally challenged in the Swiss ribbon case. So basically section 29A was inserted to make certain people ineligible that they cannot submit the resolution plan. So section 29A is for the person who is not eligible to submit the resolution plan. Now, why and how? Just see this. So basically, who is a resolution applicant? So person who either individually or jointly with any other person submits the resolution plan to the resolution professional pursuant to the invitation which is made this. Now, do you understand? This is the EOI,
EOI.
correct? Okay. Then it says that the resolution professional will identify the prospective resolution applicant. We just discussed right now on or before the 105th day of the commencement of the COC. Then it says that there are certain person who will not be eligible. So from here, I'll read it from the, or I can read it from here better because I've updated this. So just see, the person will not be eligible. Now, if I say section 29A, this is again the most important question. Don't get confused between section 11 and section 29A. Section 11 is for what? The person who is ineligible to make the application. Section 29A is the person who is not eligible to be the resolution applicant. So just see, if the person is an undischarged insolvent, you cannot submit the resolution plan. If a person is a willful defaulter, the person cannot submit the resolution plan. Then at the time of submission of the resolution plan, if the person has the account which is classified as non-performing asset, then even that person cannot submit the resolution plan. Okay. If you are holding. So remember the Vijay Malia case I was telling you. Vijay
Sir,
Malia, you are yourself you are having a NPA with so many banks. So you cannot come for a rescue of or some other company. If you are not, or if you are actually that clean that you have money, then please pay to your creditors right now and then come up with a resolution plan. So this was again tested in the ArcelorMittal case. Satish Kumar and others, ArcelorMittal case, right? So basically, Satish Kumar, who was the resolution professional for the SR Steel, okay, he made that the ArcelorMittal is not eligible. So then this amendment was made. And why they were not eligible? Because ArcelorMittal had a subsidiary which had some NPS. So then again, the matter went all up to the Supreme Court, right? So it's a very good judgment. I will share that judgment copy in the group also. In case you want to read, you can read it after the exam. It's a very good judgment, right? It covers a lot of provisions. So here it says that at the time of submission of the resolution plan has an account, okay, or an account of a corporate debtor under the management or control of such person, or of whom such person is a promoter. So if you are a promoter of a company which is classified as a non-performing asset, you are ineligible. Okay, guys, this is clear. And at least 1 year has elapsed from the date of such classification till the date of commencement of CRP. So if at the time of commencement of CIRP, you are a NPA, you were classified as NPA and you are still a NPA before the submission of the resolution plan. So you still have some 105 days within which you can make the payment. So let's say you were a NPA when the CIRP had commenced, but before submitting the resolution plan, let's say if you pay all the dues, then there is no problem. Okay. Is this clear? Is this clear? Is this point clear? No?
बताएंगे ये वाला ही point.
Okay. So देखो, this I am discussing about section 29A, right? And this is clause C. So if the resolution applicant is a NPA, right? Or the person is the promoter of NPA company, or basically in control of NPA, then the person is ineligible. Okay, one thing. Second, if you were NPA at the time of commencement of CIRP, then you will still be NPA, except if you repay the money while you are submitting the resolution plan, right? So you'll still be ineligible. But if the NPA dues are paid before the submission of resolution plan, then in that case, you will become eligible. Otherwise, you are not eligible. Now just see this chart. There is a person who wants to become a resolution applicant. Okay. That person himself is holding a account of NPA, or is a promoter of a company which is having an account which is NPA, classified as NPA, or is in control of an account which is classified as NPA when at the time of commencement of CIRP. So technically that person is not eligible. But if the person repay all the NPA dues before the submission of the resolution plan, then this resolution applicant will become eligible. Okay,
Okay, sir.
right? So I can make it this way also. So resolution applicant will become eligible if the NPA dues are paid before the submission of the resolution plan, and the person will be ineligible if the account is still classified as NPA at the time of commencement plus the dues are unpaid. Now does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Right? So what basically ArcelorMittal did, अब आप देखो, so you have Satish Kumar who is the resolution professional, you have SR Steel, and you have ArcelorMittal. Okay, so ArcelorMittal had a subsidiary company. This subsidiary company was a NPA. Okay, so technically ArcelorMittal is ineligible. So this is what Satish Kumar said. So they sent a resolution applicant. They want to become a resolution applicant for SR Steel. So Satish Kumar said that no, you are ineligible. Why? Because your subsidiary company is having a NPA. That is a NPA account. So ArcelorMittal then challenged that we should be given a chance that we are ready to pay all these dues. So then ArcelorMittal repaid all the dues of their subsidiary company, and thereafter they became eligible. Okay.
और सर CIRP तो कमेंस हो गया है, तो उसके बाद वो कैसे
CIRP किसका कमेंस हुआ है? CIRP कमेंस हुआ है आर्सेलर SR स्टील का. सो जो मोराटोरियम लगा है वो SR स्टील पे है.
पर सर इसमें ये है ना कि आर्सेलर मित्तल जब CIRP चालू हो जाता है उसके बाद यदि NPA है तो वो नहीं कर सकता.
मैं वही तो बता रहा हूँ, आप दो चीज में कंफ्यूज हो रहे हो. आर्सेलर मित्तल इज नॉट द कॉर्पोरेट डेटर, it is the SR Steel which is the corporate debtor undergoing CIRP. चलिए और एक एग्जांपल देता हूं. यू हैव जेट एयरवेज. ठीक है. नाउ जेट एयरवेज is the corporate debtor which is undergoing CIRP. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's say Astha Jain wants to submit the resolution plan for Jet Airways. So we want to test whether she is eligible or she is not eligible. So Astha Jain is promoter of Armani Jeans Limited. And this Armani Jeans Limited is a NPA and their dues are to State Bank of India. Okay, is
Okay,
this
sir.
clear? So now you want to submit a resolution plan for Jet Airways, but you are not eligible because you have this NPA, correct?
Okay, sir.
So at the time of commencement of CIRP, you had a NPA with SBI. Now you want to submit a resolution plan. Can you do so now? Answer is yes. IBC says that clear the dues of SBI. Once the dues of SBI is cleared, now you are no longer a NPA. Now since you are no longer a NPA, you are eligible. Okay. But do
Okay.
that before you submit a resolution plan for Jet Airways. So just understand the essence of section 29A. What did I say? In section 29A, before I started with this, I said that there are certain people, we don't want those people to submit the resolution plan. Like the example I gave for Vijay Mallya. If you have so much money, why don't you rescue your own airline company rather than your company, you are coming here to rescue the other company. वो फ्लाइट में अनाउंसमेंट में नहीं बोलते अगर ऑक्सीजन का दबाव कम हो जाए तो दूसरों को नकाब पहनाने से पहले सुनिश्चित करें आपने अपना नकाब ठीक से पहना है. Remember,
Yes, sir.
you should make sure that you have wore the oxygen mask properly before you help others. So same thing here. So before you are coming up with a resolution plan to rescue some other company, please ensure that you are yourself clean. You don't have a NPA. Okay, your creditors are crying that we are not being paid, and instead of paying them, you are paying or you are ready to pay to some other company's creditor. Got it? So that is
Yes.
not allowed, right? So the same logic is being given here. Okay. Then again, you have if the person is a financial entity and not a related party, then again there is no problem. So the same example that I gave yesterday, substitution of a debt. Remember, there was a debt. This debt is now converted into
Equity.
equity. This was with the respect to the holding company. Now this holding company also has a subsidiary company. This is a NPA. Now you have got control over this holding company. You are a financial entity. So will you be eligible? So technically answer is no. You will not be eligible because you are controlling now this S Limited, which is NPA. But why you are controlling this S Limited? Because you have substituted your debt into equity and you are not related to this S Limited any other way. So you'll be eligible. So this is absolutely fine. So just you need to remember that at the time of the submission of the resolution plan, if the resolution applicant is having the account which is classified as NPA, and at least one period has elapsed from the date of such classification till the date of commencement of CIRP, then the person is ineligible to submit the resolution plan. So only the points that I have highlighted here. Then you have, if you have been convicted for any offense punishable with imprisonment for 2 or more years under the acts which are specified in 12th schedule, right? Or for 7 years for any other law in time being in force. So 12th schedule provides you some long list of acts, some 25 acts are there. Like you have GST, you have Companies Act, FCRA, LLP, right? All these acts are there. So some 25 acts are given. You don't need to remember. So some 25 acts are given here. So if you are convicted for 2 or more years, then you are ineligible, right? But yes, if you have been released, then there is a cooling period of 2 years. So again, you will be eligible. Then if you are disqualified to act as a director in the company, then you will be disqualified. Then if you are prohibited from by SEBI in trading in the securities or as accessing the securities market, you will be disqualified. Then if you have been the promoter or you are in the management or in control of the corporate debtor which has done those. So these are the avoidance transaction, preferential transaction, undervalued transaction, extortionate credit transaction, or the fraudulent transaction. So I remember I said you there are 3-4 sections which are dedicated for the uh, avoidance transaction. So these are basically those avoidance transaction.
इसमें फुजिटिव ऑफेंडर को नहीं अलग रखा है ना सर,
किसको
मतलब उसमें
आगे आएगा
फ्यूजिटिव
ना, आएगा
आएगा।
fugitive economic offender भी आएगा definitely, right? Then again, if you have executed a guarantee which is in favor of the corporate debtor, so just understand this also from the slide. If you have executed a guarantee in favor of a creditor in respect of corporate debtor against whom the CIRP has been made, and the guarantee has been invoked by the creditor and it remains unpaid in full. अभी आप देखो अगर आप fugitive economic offender हो ना, तो automatically you fall into this category. Okay?
यस सर, वो लिस्टेड कंपनी के उसमें है।
हाँ, तो आप ऑटोमेटिकली वहां पे फॉल कर जाओगे। अब आप इस वाले पॉइंट को देखो, जस्ट रीड दिस पॉइंट वंस अगेन एंड देन आई explain it in the chart. So while you read this, I'll make the chart. Can you see the PDF now? Are you able to see the PDF?
यस सर।
Okay, मैं क्योंकि स्लाइड्स पे कुछ लिख रहा हूँ तो वो आपको मैं थोड़ी देर बाद दिखाता हूँ. Just read this 2 times so that you understand when I explain you. Got it? Have you read it? Have you read it?
यस यस।
Okay. So I'll show you this slide. Just see. There is a corporate debtor 1. This corporate debtor 1 is undergoing CIRP. Rather, both of them are undergoing CIRP. Okay. Now, you have this person. This person had given guarantee to the bank. So this bank had given, let's say, loan to corporate debtor 1 and you had given the guarantee. You're not a promoter. Let's say you're a director. You have given guarantee to the bank. If you have given guarantee for this and you are given guarantee to the bank that if this corporate debtor 1 do not pay, you are going to pay the money. Now let's say this corporate debtor defaulted, right? So corporate debtor 1 has defaulted and then the CIRP has commenced. So technically you are ineligible. So you are ineligible. Why? Because you are a guarantor to a corporate debtor which is undergoing CIRP. Got it? ये क्लियर हुआ? Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay. So just see this. A person who has executed the guarantee in favor of a creditor, that is the bank, in respect of a corporate debtor, that is CD1, against the application for insolvency resolution by such creditor has been admitted by the court. Right? Okay. But let's say you are this person. Don't you think it is very harsh on you? Because you have just provided the guarantee and this person has defaulted. So you should not be made eligible. Yes or no? At least you should be given a chance. The bank should first approach you. The bank should at least approach you. You should say, no, I don't have the money. I cannot pay. Then you should be made ineligible. But law में क्या हो गया था? Law में the sentence was written till here. It was only till here that if you have executed the guarantee and the CIRP has commenced against such company or the corporate debtor for whom you have given the guarantee. But then they added this additional point and they said that and such guarantee has been invoked by the creditor. So now what is going to happen? So this was before, but now you will get ineligible if bank invokes the guarantee and you do not pay. Now you will get ineligible. So let's say the bank has not invoked the guarantee. Okay, so even though CD1 is undergoing CIRP, there will be no problem. You will be still eligible. Okay, guys. Okay,
Okay, sir.
right? Understood? Basic logic समझ में आया? So how will you write? You'll write a person who is a guarantor to the corporate debtor, which is undergoing CIRP plus the guarantee is invoked plus the amount is not paid by such person and not paid either in part or in full, either in part or in full, then you say the person is ineligible. Is this clear? Guys, is this clear? Yeah, आया समझ में?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then if you are subject to any disability for the above provisions outside India, so you are ineligible and also the connected persons will be ineligible. Okay. So these are the provisions where you would say, so ignore all these things. Just understand that you will be ineligible if you fall into these cases. Now what is going to happen? The resolution applicant will now submit the resolution plan to the resolution professional along with the affidavit that the person is not ineligible under section 29A, right? And the resolution plan will be submitted on the basis of the information memorandum. The resolution professional will then examine each resolution plan which has been given there, and it will confirm that the resolution plan provides for the payment of the insolvency resolution process cost. Also, the debts will be paid to the operational creditor. How much? At least the amount which will be paid to them if the company enters into liquidation, then whatever amount they are getting, at least that much amount should be paid to them, right? Then they'll see that the resolution plan which is not have been approved or rejected by the adjudicating authority. So if the resolution plan is approved or rejected by the adjudicating authority, you cannot submit that, right? Sorry, I think we missed one part. Yes, this part. And also the management of the affair of the corporate debtor after the resolution plan. So if the resolution plan is approved, who is going to manage the corporate debtor after the resolution plan is approved? How the implementation and the supervision of resolution plan will take place. Also, resolution professional will check that the plan do not contravene any law for time being in force, and then it confirms such requirements which is specified by the board. If all these things are done, then the resolution professional will present to the committee of creditors all such plans which are eligible. Okay. And thereafter, the committee of creditor is going to approve the resolution plan by voting of 66%, right? Okay. And then the resolution plan will be approved. Ignore all these provisos and all. Ignore all these things. Ignore all these things. These are not for you, right? And thereafter, the resolution plan will be then. So the resolution applicant may attend the committee of creditor but will not be allowed to vote until unless he is himself the financial creditor. And then the resolution professional will submit the resolution plan which is approved by the committee of creditor to the NCLT. Okay. And then if the NCLT is satisfied that the resolution plan which has been approved by the committee of creditor is uh, meeting all the criteria which has been mentioned, then the resolution plan will be approved by the order, which will be binding on the corporate debtor, on its employees, members, creditors, including the government, okay, and to the guarantors and all the stakeholders involved in the resolution plan. Guys, is this clear? Guys, is this clear? NCLT will also have to ensure that the resolution plan provides for has the provision for its effective implementation. So NCLT will also check this, and as soon as the NCLT has approved the resolution plan, the moratorium period will cease to have effect and the resolution professional will forward all the documents and everything to the information insolvency and bankruptcy board of India. But let's say the resolution plan has not been approved, then in that case we will have the liquidation order which will be passed under section 33. Now let's say if any order has been passed under section 31, then the appeal can be made at NCLAT. Okay, the appeal can be made at NCLAT against the order of the NCLT, right? So these are the provisions that you have. So here you see, if the adjudicating authority rejects the resolution plan, then the liquidation order is going to start. So here we have finished the CIRP process. Is this clear? The resolution process? Is the resolution process clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we'll meet tomorrow and we'll first do a quick recap of the entire CIRP process. Please study even from your module. And if there is any doubt, feel free to WhatsApp me and then we will start with the liquidation process from tomorrow. Most probably we'll finish off the liquidation process tomorrow itself. It's a short topic. Will require 3 hours, but we'll finish it off tomorrow then. Okay.
Okay.
Okay then. Take care. Bye bye.